It opens
Thank
on
you.
April 3rd. Monday, April 3rd. What's that? Get your Dean water bottle. Come on over. Get your Dean water bottle.
Well, that's fine for our people, but I wouldn't do it.
And that's something extra. Yeah.
But there's something in the back.
Anybody else? It is by our employees.
Right.
Yep, I have just this.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's
I have
new
the
in
other
this
one.
part of the
Okay.
state too. So for a lot of folks, they don't understand what we're trying to accomplish because it is new and it certainly looks to some. I can understand that.
I've taken some keys on it. It just says it's our way of hopefully reducing our.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
That's my defense.
Yeah, the Dean people were wondering what you guys were laughing about.
Oh.
We're thinking there was a party in here.
So Steve, when you leave in Florida,
Friday, I'm driving 4 teenagers down the road. My wife is flying,
Really?
yes,
and I'm driving 4 teenagers.
good for you.
Straight stuff. Same family by your parents?
My
Would you,
wife is flying, and I'm
did you rent something or you?
I rented something
Where'd you rent?
Majestic.
Okay. Talk about it. Right by.
There's 2 of them right next to each other.
Right by Pineapple.
It's a little bit down, but really close.
And you said it has really settled down.
It has
Are we ready in the back for taping yet?
That was the big spring breaker.
Oh, he just took off.
Tim, do you know if we're ready in the back for taping?
There it is.
Are we ready back there?
Did you see that?
Good evening. Welcome to the Waunakee Community School District Board of Education regular meeting. The date is Monday, March 13th, 2017. We went into closed session at 6 p.m. It is now 7:03. We're back now in open session. You will see, first of all, in your packet, minutes for the February 15th and February 29th, February 13th and February 20th special meetings for your review and approval, please.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Just an addition under the consent agenda, under trips for the DECA International Conference. We have 4 students who qualified for that competition in Anaheim on April 26th.
Okay, as well as the changes for the updated staff changes that were in front of us. Is there a motion to approve of the agenda with that change, please?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 7, public listening session. We offer opportunities at each of our meetings for members of the public to comment on agenda items, and 4 times a year we also allow individuals to comment on non-agenda items as it relates to the governance or management of the school district. I've got one individual who wishes to speak on, it looks like construction of track and football field. So Caitlin Gelgan, if you can approach the mic, please.
Hi, my name's Caitlin Galvin. I'm a senior at Waunakee High School. I run on the track and cross-country teams. And I'd like to address the point that the construction of the track and football field, as we know, has been, the date has been set for May 22nd. May 22nd is the day of the regional track meet. And in the past, we've had 20 plus kids make it through the regional track meet. And when you make it through the regional track meet, you go on to sectionals, and when you make it through sectionals, you make it to state. So it's the most critical time in our season, and with the construction of the track and football fields to be set on that day, it would take away the track for all the athletes who make it through regionals. And last year we had 22 kids make it through regionals, and then 17 make it through sectionals, myself being one of those. And we really need that space to practice. It's been proposed for us to practice at Madison Country Day School District. However, they have middle school meets during the week of the regionals and sectionals, which would give us maybe 2 or 3 days to practice on the actual track before the state meet. And it was also proposed that we could practice at Middleton. However, the WIAA doesn't allow non-host teams to practice on a track or in an area that is being used for meets such as the sectionals or the regionals or conference. So that's also not an option. So if the construction of the track began on May 22nd, it would displace 20 plus athletes and leave us with nowhere to practice. And what I've heard from my coaches is that the date has been set for May 22nd because there is a non-conference football game on August 14th, and that is available online on their website for their 2017 schedule. And they would like to host. It's a home game, and they would like to host that game. However, it interferes with the track team, and I feel like it's really upsetting to me, and that we are being kind of overlooked and displaced. And for comparison, it's kind of like if the football team was not given the ability to practice during their postseason. Just for the comparison, that's kind of how it is for track. And so I would like to propose that the date of the construction of the track and football fields be postponed until after the track season to between June 3rd and June 5th as the state track meet starts on June 2nd, and any athlete who goes tends to leave on June 1st. However, we tend to hold practice before we leave. So any of those days we would be gone in cross, and so any of those days afterward would be fine. However, May 22nd and any time before or after, in between that slot, kind of gives us puts us in a hard place, and we won't be able to practice and compete as well as we could.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Brandon, do you have any comments?
No, I just think it's well said. I mean, I appreciate you coming here and talking to us about what your concerns are. I think oftentimes we hear about concerns being talked about, and having folks come up, and you're one of the few that comes forward to speak with us and tell us what's on your mind, and offering some things for us to think about. But let me kind of fill in a few things just so that you kind of have a concept of really where we're going with some of the projects. The May 22nd date was part of our the draft timeline that we put together, and it's built off of the first home football game, which is August 18th. So it was kind of an initial look at building backwards from there, how much time did it take to actually renovate the field. Part of the reason we looked at that was timelines. And then I know Mr. May was involved with working with our engineers about, well, how can we address that with track? And one of the pieces that we learned from how some other districts have done it is similar to how we had kind of proposed it, which is finding some neutral site that you would be able to continue practice for those athletes that went forward. And that was where Madison Country Day became an option that we reached out to them, and they're open to that because they have a brand new track facility. So that was one of the pieces that we looked at as a positive. But you're right, there is a day, I think there's one day that we're not able to use it because they have another event going there. So I know that was a piece that if this schedule were to remain, that Mr. May was looking for some other options. But as I said, this is really right now on a draft timeline. So tonight the board is looking at the bids for the stadium project, and then we come back on March 27th where they'll actually approve that. And once that's approved, then we will have all of our contractors in place. And once those folks are in place, the next step is to really have a pre-construction meeting. That's where you have all the contractors around the table, and we will be revisiting that whole timeline. And part of what I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do is see what flexibility we have. Moving it all the way to June, I'm not sure is possible, but trying to accomplish some of the things in the middle there, maybe some things that we can try to work through. But I won't really know that till we sit around the whole table and see really what timelines that they need to hit as we move this project forward. But your concerns, I think, are some things that we need to take into consideration. And it will definitely, your voice that you've shared here tonight will be heard around that table as an issue for us to discuss when we're laying out the project and the timeline.
Okay.
And then that'll come back to the board in
Definitely.
April.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Great, thanks, Caitlin.
Are there any other individuals who wish to address the board tonight? As one thing that we had noted in our minutes was that we were expecting County Executive Joe Parisi to be sharing some information with us on building bridges, which we're taking action on tonight. And I believe that needed to be postponed until the May meeting.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so he will be addressing the board at that point in time. Okay, on to agenda item 8, administrative reports, recommendations, starting with our student reports. And then again.
Hello, so, starting off March, we're gonna have another open mic night after spring break, which I've kind of talked about before, which is where we have, anyone who wants to sign up, come and show off their talents in the school.
And then on April 11th and 12th, we're planning to have another blood drive since the one back in January was very successful. So we're hoping to get more people than we did back in January to donate.
And then we also have our state conference coming up at the end of April, which is a lot of fun, and we get to go and meet a lot of other councils and do a lot of fun like team building activities, and that's always been a fun experience for us.
And then we're planning on talking to the middle schoolers the last week in April about them running for student council representatives, and then we plan on having the officer elections in April too. So hopefully we'll be able to get some people to run for those positions for next year.
Yeah, it's always fun going to talk to them so that, because the student council in high school is very different than middle school, so just introducing them and getting them interested early on is always important to us.
So are there any questions?
So this is your second open mic?
I think for this year.
Second one
Yeah.
this year?
We're trying to get another one going.
Is Mr. Kirsten part of your lineup yet?
You should be.
I heard he can really dance.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, anyone is welcome.
Even Mr. Gutenberg?
Yes, I'm looking for slots.
Do a little ditty?
Okay, and then that open night mic is when?
Oh, we haven't set a date for
Oh,
that
yeah,
yet.
okay.
Our meeting's actually tomorrow, so.
Okay.
We're hoping at the end of March, maybe when they come back from spring
Yeah.
break.
Oh, good, we'll keep that date posted, so. okay.
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On to item B, board reports. Anybody have anything they'd like to share since our last week?
I have two things. It was my pleasure to be invited and be able to participate in Prairie's community book read. It was a really fun event. Got to read a couple books to a third grade classroom, and other members from the community were there. They had a nice little breakfast
Oh, it
for
was
us
great.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Joan was there too.
Randy was
Lots
there.
of fun. So really appreciated that chance to get in with those little people. They were very engaged, had great questions from the book, and that was just really fun. And it's not something I attended, but it's something I missed. I saw this article in the Wisconsin State Journal about our middle school social studies staff that arranged for one of the lost boys of the Sudan to come and speak to the students. And got an excellent article in the paper. It sounds like the students were really engaged, and it was a very positive learning experience. And like I say, I'm just sorry that I missed it was going on, because I would have loved to have attended that. But thanks to all our middle school staff that was involved in arranging that. It was really awesome.
Yep.
I attended the STEM event held in high school this weekend. And, I think the school did a great job. You know, we had some good participation. Walked through the Innovation Center. It was well attended in the Innovation Center, talking with the students that were hosting or at the different stations. They were really excited. So.
Was this the one that was also in partnership with the library? I
Yep.
believe? Okay. Anyone else? I'd like to just thank the staff and all the volunteers who helped out with the Solo and Ensemble Festival a couple of weekends ago. We hosted it here at our high school, and it takes a lot, and it went very well. So I want to thank all the custodial staff and all the volunteers who made that possible, as well as congratulations to all the students and staff. It was a great day to listen to a lot of great music as well. Okay, on to item C, strategic planning, our wellness clinic update.
Turn this over to Connie, to Steve, to introduce our guests here tonight.
Do you want to do one thing?
Sure, I'll grab the mics in front. Sure. Thank you, Randy. I'm going to lead us through the presentation and have the folks who are with us here join in and help participate if there are specific questions. We'll do some introductions in just a moment. What we're going to cover tonight is the strategic planning initiative that really involves the Wellness Committee and the Wellness Clinic, and we're going to discuss both of those topics with you this evening. We're going to connect those to our district strategic planning process and where these fall within our strategic planning initiatives. We'll have some introductions of some of the folks we've been spending quite a bit of time working with this project on. We're going to discuss the Wellness Committee, who's on the Wellness Committee and what has the Wellness Committee been working on lately. We're going to discuss the clinic itself, an update on the discussion on the Waunakee Wellness Clinic since we've last brought the topic to you during the month of November. The evaluation or the metrics of the clinic, what are we going to be using to try to determine if the clinic is a success, and really frame up the decision-making process that the board will be faced with as we move forward into the 2018 timeframe as we discuss not only the wellness clinic but our health insurance plan in general. On our strategic planning framework, you will notice that the discussion that we're having tonight is really over the topics that encompass both the Wellness Committee and the health clinic model. So we'll be touching on both of those areas tonight. So on to some introductions. So on the screen, you see some of the many people that Connie and I have been working with on the Dean team to help put together the wellness programs we have in place for the district and the wellness clinic. I'm really pleased to introduce 4 folks from that team who've joined us this evening. And to the board members, right, we have Dr. William Ranum, who is the medical advisor to the Waunakee Wellness Clinic. Right next to him is Sandy Cohen. Sandy's a clinic administrator for Dean and really has put in a significant amount of time on the operational end on the clinic to help us get this up and running. If there's any questions regarding the operations, I'm definitely going to lean on Sandy to help us answer those. Next to Sandy, we have Mike Weber. Mike is an executive director of sales client services. Mike has worked with the school district for a number of years and is a Waunakee resident, has 2 sons who are graduates of the school system. And next to Mike, we have Lynn Grover. Lynn has really been a leader in the wellness area and working on the wellness initiatives that we've been putting in place in our district. So if we have a wellness related question, we're definitely going to ask Lynn to help us answer that tonight. So we've also got some other folks on the screen that we've been working with as well, and there's numerous other folks on the Dean side that have been helping us through this process. So we're thankful that we've had some folks be able to join us tonight. So first, the Wellness Committee. So there's some new participants in the Wellness Committee since we last showed you who was a part of the committee. The committee is still led by Amy Frank and Shad Fanta. So they are the co-chairs of the committee. You see the membership identified at the bottom. At the top right, underneath Amy's picture, you would see Kelly Nemo. Kelly is another person on the team from Dean that we are working regularly with. Kelly is the liaison to the Wellness Committee and is there for all of the meetings, provides support for all of the programs and initiatives that the Wellness Committee is working on. Connie and myself are listed as administrative liaisons, meaning that we try to participate in the discussions when appropriate, provide resources, assistance, anything we can do to help the folks on this committee really achieve the objectives that they're trying to put forth. On the next slide, this is a new website that Jenny Andrus in HR, who's a participant on the committee, has been helping the committee members put together. It's really designed to be a one-stop location where all of the wellness initiatives in the district are being identified. So you can see as an example under the wellness information, all of the various activities that the Wellness Committee is working on are listed there. The most recent one is at the bottom underneath the wellness information, which really is the STEP Challenge program that was put in place for the winter of 2017. Numerous activities that the Wellness Committee has been working on. In fact, a couple members of the Wellness Committee just put together a YouTube video that helped explain for our staff the health risk assessments that are taking place next month. It was a pretty funny take on what that is really doing for staff and their participation in it. And they're actually looking to make a couple of additional videos, just more of a lighthearted way to try to, get the message out. And we may end up having some YouTube sensations on our hands because they're quite funny and actually interesting to watch. So they're not on here yet because we just took this snapshot about a week and a half ago, and that video just went out actually last weekend. So for those of you who are interested in knowing what is the Wellness Committee doing, what are the various initiatives that they have, who's really on the committee, what are they working on, this section of the district website is really the one location that you can go to really see at all times what it is that the committee is really focused on and what their efforts are leading them towards at this point. You would notice on the right-hand side there's a section on the wellness clinic as well, so that information is being shared through this page as well to staff. Regarding the wellness clinic, on this slide we really identify what the objectives of the wellness clinic are. I'm not going to go through and read all of these for you, but basically we've covered these in previous presentations. The objectives as far as what it is that we are looking to accomplish with the opening of the wellness clinic remain the same as what we shared with you back in November when we asked for the approval of the trial period. When it comes to the wellness clinic, there's really two major functions that we would like to see in the clinic. One, we are calling acute care services, and it's a wide variety of services that can be performed in the clinic through the nurse practitioner who's been hired to do so. You see those developed, that list developed on the screen. So at this point we've shared this information with the staff in the district. They are aware of what these services are. We've been working off of this list for quite some time, and there's a lot of excitement and interest in being able to go to this clinic to get some of these common typical things that do come up on a regular basis and have them taken care of at the clinic. But the acute care piece is one piece of the clinic. The other one is really wellness. And I want to just take a minute and talk about this slide because this is completely new. You've not seen this before. And this is something I know all of us who have been involved in the wellness clinic and the wellness programs for the district are very proud of. We've been working with the folks at Dean to try to connect the biometric screening data that is taken during the month of April, or it's called the health risk assessment, with wellness initiatives from our wellness clinic. We realized that the proactive element of looking at biometric screenings through the screening process last year could be improved. So we went back to the wellness team at Dean, who went back to their legal team and other staff at Dean and authorized us to come up with a process completely voluntary for those staff who would like to share their results from the biometric screenings with the nurse practitioner to work on wellness goals. So we would be the first client that Dean is working with, either public or private, to offer this type of service to our staff. So it's a very groundbreaking type program, completely voluntary, that really connects the other side of the wellness clinic to what it is that we're already doing in the district. So for those staff who are interested in doing this, they would simply sign the form at the bottom, provide their information to the person that will show you in the next screen, who will then reach out to them to have discussions about whatever their wellness goals are. And it could be a variety of different things somebody could have as a wellness goal. Given this is new, I think we have reasonable goals for the number of individuals that might want to participate in this. But this is probably the most important element of what we're trying to do in the wellness clinic. Because if at the wellness clinic, if we have the potential to work with individuals who are concerned that their numbers are leading them into a situation that may be pre-diabetic, etc., they can work with this individual to come up with a long-term plan and regular check-ins to improve their health, to get them out of that medical situation that they might be in. So we're really proud of being able to come up with something like this, to offer this to our staff as an additional service, and are very thankful that the Dean team who worked with us to put this together was willing to try this out in Waunakee and with our staff to see what we could do on a proactive basis for those that are really interested in participating. So this element I just wanted to share with you is new from what we had talked about previously, but it is a direct connection to the wellness side of what we're trying to accomplish. Suzanne has been hired as the nurse practitioner. I know that Dr. Rannum was involved in the process of selecting Suzanne and also training and going through the process. So was Sandy. So was Connie. Connie was invited to participate in that process as well. So a number of people participated and feel very strongly that Suzanne is an excellent choice for what it is that we are trying to accomplish in our new wellness clinic. You can see information about Suzanne listed on the screen. Suzanne actually, we are lucky, she's actually a Waunakee resident, so she lives within our community. This was a great fit for what Suzanne was looking to do with her career. And we're very excited that we have Suzanne and that she's ready to join us with the opening of our clinic. Suzanne will be completing her training process soon and will begin transitioning at the end of this month to being located in the clinic with the opening coming the following week. In addition to Suzanne, this slide provides information that you've not seen before as well. The folks from Dean that you see in the front row, as well as others, and Connie and myself and Al Yeager, participate in weekly telephone calls and have been since early January to really get the clinic up to where we need it to be. And during those discussions, Dean has offered up, in addition to Suzanne, who the district is paying for, an additional position, clinical support staff called medical assistant. And on this slide, you will see what the responsibilities are for the position. And of significant note, the very last point on this slide, 100% of the cost of this position is funded by Dean as a value add to the clinic. Dean is significantly invested in seeing this wellness clinic work in a very positive manner for our staff, and has stepped forward to say we would like to invest in the clinic as well, and we would like to provide this position because they believe that will put the clinic in the best position for success. Go ahead.
Is this an on-site person too? So they're
This
at
is
the
an
same
on-site
location?
person, yep. They will be at the same location as Suzanne at the Waunakee Clinic. So this is an incredible commitment from Dean to invest additional resources in the clinic. And like I mentioned before, this individual and these services are being paid by Dean as an investment, in addition to Suzanne, who you saw on the previous screen, which the district is paying for her position. Staff communication plan. Connie has spent a significant amount of time working on this topic. It's very important that we continue to roll out information to the staff of our district so they understand what we're doing at the clinic, when is it opening, who's working there, what services can be provided, what are the hours. What you see on the screen right now is one of the communications that Connie sent out. This one is designed around noticing the opening of the clinic on Monday, April 3rd. So that was really the intent of what this communication was. There was communications before this. Connie's working on one that'll go out this week, and there's further communications that are intended to go out further. You will notice at the top of that communication, if you want to call it the logo or the branding behind the wellness clinic. So the top part of that was actually created by the Staff Wellness Committee. One of the initiatives that the Staff Wellness Committee had previously completed was designing a logo that would really show the staff this is a wellness initiative. So that came from the Wellness Committee, and then we worked with our partners at Dean and St. Mary's to really wrap in the in-partnership piece and really put together what we want to use on all of the communications. You will also see this, we'd like to get the board over there sometime in April. You'll see this on the door to go into the clinic. You'll see it on the awnings. We're trying to use this on all of our communications, basically anything wellness related. So our staff knows when they see this, this is a wellness related activity that's going on in the school district. The floor plan for the clinic. So the two pictures on the left were taken about 10 days ago. The flooring is scheduled to go down this week. It's almost complete with the work at the wellness clinic. One change since we last addressed this topic with you is there is one exam room space, there's not two. Through the discussions, we realized that in the initial trial phase of the period, we wanted to actually construct one exam room. The one that's listed as exam 2 is more as an office space at this point. It's not designed to be a fully exam space, so we're operating with one, and that was really designed to be as cost effective as we possibly could during the trial period. The remainder of the floor plan looks as you can see it right there. We would like to get the school board members out there at some point in April to get a chance to take a look at what this is like. I know Connie's working to plan on some open house and other activities occurring during the month of April. We are continuing to track the remodeling costs of the clinic. On the left-hand side, you will see the budget that was presented to the school board previously. On the right-hand side, we are tracking all of the bills that we are paying for the remodeling as well as the vendor. At this point, we are on track to either finish at or lower than the dollar amount that's been projected. You'll see later on in the schedule, I'm proposing that the final numbers regarding this clinic be presented to the budget committee as soon as the information is ready. But as you saw from a previous slide, the work is still being finalized, so all of the bills have not been paid yet regarding the remodeling. On the operational cost side, we're still working from a total monthly budget of approximately $20,000. On an annual basis, it's roughly $264,000 to run the clinic. To put that amount in perspective, a 5% rate increase on our health insurance plan is $250,000. So you'll see in our evaluation slide how we're trying to connect our health insurance plan renewals with success in the wellness clinic. Okay, what are we looking at to help measure success of the wellness clinic? We've got several factors that we're looking at evaluating. The first one is really patient engagement in the clinic. We are setting a goal of 25% staff participation in the wellness clinic by March 1st of 2018. That may be a little bit of an aggressive number, knowing that this is a brand new concept to not only Waunakee, but this part of the state. Even though these clinics are in place in other parts of the state, we understand that this is a new concept, and certainly we'll be encouraging staff to participate, but realize, at least at the very beginning, it's going to take a little bit of a period of time for people to become comfortable using this. But for those who do participate, we are using a high satisfaction determinant. We do believe that we should expect to see 90% or greater of those staff who do participate and visit the clinic of having a positive encounter. We do have plans in place to measure that, and we do hope to see a 90% or greater positive response for those who do choose to use the clinic. On the wellness perspective, our goal is to establish a biometric baseline for at least 90% of our staff, and we would like to target 5% of staff participating in the wellness piece, or when you saw the wellness consult form. Given that the wellness clinic is certainly new in this part of the state, the wellness consult form is extremely new. And it's certainly something that we have to spend the time helping our staff understand what that means for them, what services are available for them, and how they might utilize that. So we think it's more likely people will be comfortable for sure using it from the acute care side, but we certainly want to encourage the wellness side. That's why that target is lower than the patient clinic piece. And then the return on investment. We are certainly seeking to have a goal of a lower than 5% health insurance increase for 7/1 of 2018, and a goal, if the board approves this clinic, to move forward into the future of having it funded through our annual operational budget, not through the fund balance like we had requested for the initial setup period. So we're looking at 4 different areas that we are trying to track and establish an evaluation as to the success of the clinic. And then moving forward, we have some key dates that we want to share with you. First of all, we'd like to bring back the financial reports on the remodeling costs and the monthly budget to the budget committee. That would likely occur at the May or June meeting of the committee, depending on the other things the committee's working on. In December, we'd like to bring a report back to the board, a satisfaction report on the clinic to date. So we get that will only have perhaps 6 months worth of data, but we feel an interim report to the board is essential so you can have an understanding as to how things are going at the wellness clinic. So we have planned to bring you that report about halfway through the evaluation cycle. In March, we will have the information on the health insurance plan renewal, so we'd like to begin the discussion really on the return on investment and what are the numbers looking like from the financial perspective. In May of 2018, we have slated a school board decision on the clinic, our health insurance program, and our carrier. Because on June 30th of 2018, our current dean agreement expires, and July 1st of 2018, we would slate for a new agreement to begin for X number of years, whether it's a 1-year renewal, a 3-year contract, a 5-year contract. That is certainly up for discussion. And throughout the process, it's extremely important that the staff wellness committee and the staff insurance committee are engaged. So the wellness committee and the insurance committee are each working on different aspects of our health insurance program, and we need to make sure that each of those committees continue to be engaged in the process as we move forward from now until July 1st of 2018. I do have some excellent folks here who are just waiting to answer some of your questions, so I will turn it over to the board and the appropriate. Absolutely. Sure. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just it's being recorded. But thank you.
I am Sandy from the clinic. Just a couple clarifications.
Yep.
Thank you, Steve. One was on the second exam room that Steve said was an office. It's actually a consult room. It's set up for patient care. So the NP, Suzanne, may take someone in there to discuss their biometric results. She may take them in there to educate them on their diabetic situation. She may take them in to counsel on behavioral mental health issues. There isn't an exam table for a physical exam, but it's still a care delivery room. So there are 2 patient care rooms. Another one was on the medical assistant. The reason why we stepped up to staff that, we were going to have Suzanne prove that she needed it, and we didn't feel that with this being our first venture into a near-site clinic for an employer, we should have that be a barrier to good care, is to have us prove how busy it was going to be. So we decided to staff it up front, reserving the right that if the volume really slows down and the demand is not supporting 2 staff members, we certainly can make an adjustment, but we wanted to start off on the right foot. Secondly, on Suzanne's introduction up there, it did say the clinic hours were 10:30 to 6, Monday through Friday. We just want you to know that's flexible, and we're kind of waiting for demand. If your eligible participants tell us that they'd like 1 or 2 days earlier, or we need to do a little bit of adjustment so that we can meet their needs, we're absolutely flexible to do that. And last but not least, one of the things on the great communication that Connie's been working on, it does say as one of the incentives to come in, little to no wait. If there's a stampede for our services, we can't promise little to no wait, but we certainly want to provide the best access and try to schedule things and start to stay on top of the walk-in volume, et cetera. So just a few clarifications.
No, thank you. Dr. Annam, anybody else have anything you want to share? Or?
Well, I have to make a clarification. So both my kids did graduate from Waunakee, but so did my wife, so I'm really one of those. One thing I just want to say is that we sincerely appreciate the partnership that we have right now. And I also want to compliment Steve and Connie for all the work that they've done. This is a real clean and crisp PowerPoint, but that's a lot of work to go into to get this together. So I just want to say on behalf of Dean and SSM, the work that Al has done, but Connie and Steve deserve a lot of credit for really kind of pushing us at some time, pulling us at times, because this was a learning experience. And when we talk about those weekly meetings, a lot of questions back and forth, so we grew a lot from the work that they did. So thank you.
So, like they're saying, it's a brand new thing. We've never done it. I've never done it. I think it's a great thing because right now we're always struggling to find more providers at our site, and so having somebody of your own is sort of special. I think it's a busy process, and I give these guys all the credit for getting that put together. because we did it at our own clinic, and it's, you know, after 3 years of planning, it's still, there's a little rough, the schedule time, as far as organizing, I think we will learn a lot in the first few months. You know, I think there'll be a little bit of chaos, and I hope everybody can understand chaos and something that's entirely brand new, but I'm very committed to this thing going, and I think because we have such fantastic staff. Suzanne actually committed herself to coming to Waunakee because of the school district here. So that's how she lived in several places in the United States, but chose you guys. So that we're fortunate to have this district to be able to pull somebody in like that, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Question, I saw Julie's hand, okay. Jack?
No, I was just curious, you know, we're doing this for our school district. Is this something that could be expanded, you know, to, you know, like the village, if they were on a program similar to it, you know, to get your numbers and utilization up? Or even like the townships around here, you know, their staff.
So I'm on the village board too, and we talked about this a bit. We just haven't, it's sort of one of those things that are one step at a time, I think, but this is the idea, I think, as time goes.
But is it something where we've got this investment that, you know, can other groups, as they...
I guess I get that way. But I know that at the level of the village, that there's interest in what happens. I mean, so I can't speak to others.
Al, would you mind sharing just an example of where that's been done and kind of what that might look like? And didn't see you sneak in. This is Al Yeager from AFG, who's been working as a partner on this entire project too. So Al,
sure.
Thank you.
The trend in terms of statewide, there's multiple examples where county, city, school district, and Parker to maybe get additional size, scale, and as a result, potential services. You know, there's certainly pros and cons of doing that, and I would say that by starting by yourself to figure out what it is that works for you as a deciding entity makes the most sense like you have. Because when you try doing that with 3 separate entities, it becomes very challenging in my experience in doing that. So there is a possibility there, I would say, yeah, but that, as you know, Dr. Random indicated, that takes time. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, at least there's a possibility. I'm just looking at numbers of utilization and shared cost and things like that.
And certainly the other probably challenge is the village at this point uses a different product system. So that's another discussion.
Jerry?
I just have a comment. I think it's a great thing for our employees, but we're selfish a little bit for people watching this that we're trying to reduce our rates. It's what we think is the going way to reduce our rates, and it's just nice that Doc Random has guaranteed us a 15% rate drop.
Thank you.
No, but that's the general thing. It's improving the health of our workers, but also improving where the rates are going because they're nuts. It's the way healthcare is. So it's hopefully a good way for us to improve that situation.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Gary, because I think, well, Joan, you've been on the insurance committee for a long time. And I think that when it comes to that committee's discussions over the years, maybe you can provide kind of a framework on the history.
I've really had the opportunity, and, you know, I have learned so much being on the insurance committee, both as a staff member for about 10 years before I retired, and then as a board member in retirement. And the discussions of how to manage that rate increase has been ongoing for, I mean, that's what we talk about in the insurance committee is how do we manage that aspect. But I think the key to this whole endeavor is the wellness component and helping our staff be less of a user of medical needs. And I think that the more we can do in the wellness component, the more likely we're going to have the rate decrease, or at least less of an increase that we might have been in enduring before. So I just applaud the wellness part of this whole endeavor, as well as the clinic. I think the clinic will just be such a gift to our employees. But if we can get our employees healthier, that's the true gift to everybody, is to get healthier people.
Julie?
Two comments. One, really big, huge thanks for agreeing to have that medical assistant person on site. I did have a real concern that we would be setting up whoever we put in there all by themselves to fail without that kind of support. I was a medical receptionist once. It's an unsung hero. They'll be busy, trust me. So that piece of it. And then to just kind of confirm that we're committing to renting the space and paying the salary of the nurse practitioner. Is it also true then all the other costs with running the clinic, all the medical supplies, that's another way that Dean is partnering with us and they are picking up those costs?
No. So the estimate that was given the school board that was approved in November was for approximately $15,000 a month to run the clinic. And with the exception of the medical assistant, it's to run the operations of the clinic. So it's medical supplies, it's lease of the medical equipment, it's the utilization of the waived lab tests that we'll be doing. It is the salary of the nurse practitioner, et cetera. It's basically owning and operating, which we'll manage, the Waunakee School District Wellness Clinic. And those were all in the initial invoice and estimate, all detailed out line by line.
I must have misunderstood that part. I guess I'm a little hesitant. We don't know what it takes to run a medical clinic efficiently and effectively, so.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's what we do best.
Yeah, that's my point, but where's the, or what? I mean, because otherwise all those costs get put back on us. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm sorry.
So we estimated what that was and what we've committed to.
Your invoice will be $15,000 a month. If any overage of that is on Dean.
That's what I wanted to understand.
Okay.
Okay, that's perfect. That's
So we're
wonderful.
all
Thank you.
motivated to keep costs down.
Yes, correct. That's
Okay, you were going to comment on wellness, I
Yeah,
think.
I absolutely.
Thank you.
Lynn Grover, I'm just here representing the wellness component. And Joan, thank you so much for pointing that out. But I would like to kind of throw that back at Waunakee School District because you have already engaged in the wellness component as a part of the leadership to this. You can see that in your wellness committee and the staff members you have engaged and what your staff members are doing in that climate of change around their culture as far as engaging that wellness component, as well as the leadership of Connie and Steve in this. I would like to also let you know that besides the Wellness Committee, we didn't recognize the one additional person that's here from Dean that is supporting you in that aspect, and that's a nurse liaison. You'd been served previously by Jessie McCarty, and we recently just hired her replacement. And we're very excited to continue this service for you because as we look at wellness and we look at each of us sitting in this room, there's something in our health that we're dealing with. Whether that's that we want to just improve a lifestyle choice that we have, or we're starting to see some risk factors creep up and a little bit of a potential disease diagnosis from Dr. Rana, but something that you need to manage and learn more about. And that nurse liaison, along with your nurse practitioner at the Wellness Center, will be able to assist your members in doing that. When I speak to your community, embracing the nurse liaison and embracing wellness, we've been sharing data with your school district, which I'm sure you've all seen, in regards to the percentage of your people who are starting to have those conversations. So that is the tip to increasing and changing those outcomes. So good luck on this venture. I'm really proud to be a part of it.
I'm glad you mentioned about kind of the engagement already on the part of the wellness committee district, because we heard that, I think, in a variety of unsolicited ways, either through combination of listening sessions or community discussions, where, staff were saying, hey, this is really helpful. I mean, if nothing else, making it easier to schedule an appointment for something, rather than having to take time off or like go away from the classroom or from teaching,
Yes.
making it something that is family friendly and actually provides a benefit instructionally as well, because of the way that things can be streamlined. So, but also the fact that they must be doing some phenomenal communications internally, because the staff has talked about, oh, I didn't know, isn't that great? And like, I'm glad to see the new program. So it's nice to have the ownership all around on this one. So. Connie?
Just a final comment. The open house is scheduled for April 11th, and more information will be coming out. That's really geared towards staff, 3 to 7 on Tuesday, April 11th. But I was wondering if board members would like to do a walkthrough on Monday, April 10th, maybe right before your board meeting starts.
We could chat maybe when we're doing scheduling meetings or
Yeah,
something.
that is an option. The timing would be great because it'll be all ready for open house, so that's out there for you. And the flooring and everything is in right now. Furniture is getting delivered on Friday, so we're really excited about it.
Are there any other questions?
Really exciting.
This is a very exciting venture, yes. And thank you for your partnership.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And thank you, Connie and Steve. And Al, all of you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Okay, facility maintenance, Warrior Stadium.
Tonight what you have in your packet are the initial bids we've received on the Warrior Stadium project. The Facilities Committee met last week and saw them really right after we received them. So the documents you see in your packet are directly from Rettler as they opened them up and then prepared them for the Facilities Committee. What is occurring right now is they are going through each of those, vetting them out, reviewing them for scope, reviewing them for their alignment with the bid documents to make sure that what is being put forward is exactly what we were asking for. So that process is continuing. There is also a number of other things that are continuing to be followed up on. The scoreboard piece is something that I know Aaron is very involved with. I don't see that necessarily following under the same timeline that we would for the rest of the project. We are coming back here on March 27th at 6 o'clock to really address the bids that are coming in, and Rettler will have a report that evening on exactly what their vetting process has brought forward, and we'll have a recommendation that night. The scoreboard piece is something that I think we want to involve you in some of that dialogue, so we will share some of that information as Aaron and others really pull that out here in the next week or so, and we'll present that on the 27th. But we see that as an item that we can actually bring for you at the April meeting for you to have consideration on. So it gives us a little bit more time to kind of vet a few things out. We're working with a few different vendors on that and trying to make some better decisions and have some additional conversation around it. The turf shock pad is an area that came up really kind of towards the end of this process. It was not necessarily, or it was not part of the bid documents, but it has come up as that process has moved forward from some of our staff. Facilities Committee, I believe, was supportive of moving that piece forward for more discussion. So Rettler is going back to review and get further bids on what that dollar amount is. I believe we're estimating it about in the $80,000 range. Some districts and some facilities that have put in turf fields have added the shock pad, others have not. The other pieces that we are taking a look at is the track surface. The Facilities Committee was open to an upgrade to that. As far as a long-term cost perspective, that will most likely be a recommendation that we have at that time. The fundraising committee is continuing their work, and I know Gary has some things he'd just like to add with regards to that in a minute. But what you see in your packet is really the raw data we've received from our bids. Those are being vetted out. When we look at our board packet coming forward for the March 27th meeting, you're most likely not going to see a whole lot new because that process won't be complete by the end of this week. Steve and I are both going to be gone next week. So as we come forward at the meeting on the 27th, we will have all the updated pieces and recommendations on the bids that are coming forward. So part of what we are looking for this evening is if there's additional questions that you would like us to pose to Rutland, if there's additional questions that you would have that we need to do some investigations on, we would like to know. I don't necessarily need to know at the table here tonight, but I would say if we could know by Wednesday or Thursday of this week, so we could turn those around to our consultants so that they can give us and have some time to really work through those. I know, Aaron, you brought a few examples of some of the things that we're looking at, if anybody wants to see those. And I guess I'll give Steve an opportunity, members of the committee or Aaron, to add in any further details on the Warrior Stadium project and our status as of right now.
Go ahead, Aaron, if you have anything to share.
Well, going on the fields, we've had the opportunity to sit down with John Horn. He's the director of rec sports at the UW Madison School. Oh, I'm sorry. By we, I mean me, some of our coaches, and the committee that's fundraising. We had an opportunity to sit down with John Horn, who's the director of rec sports at UW's system. They just did a 9-acre area of turf field, and he really was a great resource for us. He visited 85 fields over X amount of states over the last year or so, really investigated. He really gave us some good information. He was one of the ones that kind of pointed us to want to reevaluate the idea of looking at the pad. Well, there might be some extra upfront costs in the long run. When you do your cost analysis, it comes out pretty much the same as not doing it, but provides a better GMAX score, which is the rating that gets done to measure the impact forces on someone who gets tackled onto the field. It provides a more consistent rating and a lower rating, so a better field, safer field for the student athletes for a longer period of time than going without a pad. So that's the one thing I would add, because that's something that was kind of popped up new here, I would say, in the last 2 weeks or so.
And one of the things that we talked about in the facility regarding that is just safety of the athletes. We thought that was a good deal. There was a scoreboard. I think they're starting to look at some different options for the scoreboard, which could be utilized for track meets, cross meets. It can be reconfigured. For the different activities that we have on the surface and in the stadium. So our committee basically talked about the field and the bids. So.
Steve, anything to add that I missed? No.
I have a comment, I guess, as it relates, this is the first time I've looked at, say, the bids.
Yep.
And there's a very wide range of the different options. And I guess the one thing that I would want to make sure that we're really careful about is particularly in the general site construction side of things, how you prep the area before installing anything is everything. It's like, prepping a building before painting will determine how long the paint lasts. Construction before, building a road. We know from what we have, on Highway 19, that basically, it had the conditions been right and had the base been right, we wouldn't be dealing with what we were dealing with in a short number of years later. So I just want to make sure, at least on the general site construction, whatever we do, that low cost, understand what's in the costs, and low cost might not necessarily be if there's a real difference in how the area is prepped, because that will determine the length of a lot.
Yeah, when you go to the RFP and the tolerances in terms of like just the grading and doing the sub-base for adding turf are very, very strict. There's not a lot of margin for error, so that whole thing is laser graded, and part of that was going to then grading companies that have experience, not just doing road grading, but actually doing sport field
Well,
grading.
that's what I'm
required.
thinking, I'm saying, it's regardless, I mean, generally each application has its own set of specs and it's
Yep.
important, but regardless what the issue is, it's how you prep it for whatever is gonna be applied or done that will determine.
The conversation we had when we went through the bid opening and had some time to discuss with Rutler, really the question you're bringing up, Maggie,
Okay.
was with regards to kind of the bids, why the variation. Part of it was that the low bidder in this case is someone that they have a lot of experience with. They primarily just do fields like this, so they've built in they have high levels of confidence with this firm, and they've built in really the efficiencies that they can do to do the work. Some of the others don't have the background experience,
Okay.
and so they felt that there's some buffer built in to make sure that they can accomplish the work. But from Rutler's perspective, that this was in line with what they see, and they're able to deliver on those type of numbers in a quality way. So part of the reason we worked with Rutler in this process was the number of fields that they've worked with. So from their perspective, they were comfortable with really the discussion and the question that you asked is one that we were also having with them.
Okay. And would that be, I mean, you know, everybody, the conversation is, yeah, it's gonna be turf, but if it wasn't, it was grass, I mean, it'd still be good for grass.
Right.
Yep.
Perfect, okay.
Well, just a general comment on all this. We're at a kind of a point of urgency with all this. You know, we decided initially, we had drainage issues, we had lighting issues, we had scoreboard issues, we had crown of the field issues, so we committed to fixing that, which is still our commitment. We were approached by the community in general to say if they came up with some money, we could add and we could maybe do turf, which is beneficial to us in a lot of ways, and you look at our snow today and our spring sports and where that's going to be, it's going to help. I mean, there's other sports that could benefit from it, softball to baseball, at least that you could get some reps on a field outside before, whereas we're going to be in the gym for now. So there's huge benefits that it's going to be a multi-use field, that is not going to be just a one sport field, which I've heard some things too. But the point of, and we're going to improve it, and they've done a great job so far of fundraising from what I understand, and we'll find out more of that on the 27th, but we're at this point now. I've always said all along, we're committing to doing this, we can make it grass again, we'll have a good field, and there's a number. And they're working at getting a number to make this work, to put the turf in, and I hope they get there, but we've got 2 weeks. So there's a point of urgency in that those numbers have to match, or we have to do something, because last year we had some of our electronics not working and whatever with the field, so we had issues, so we're at a point of having to do this now or whatever. So my just point is there's numbers that make this work. Hopefully our numbers get hit. There's a point of urgency. It is going to be a beneficial thing for a lot of other revenues or avenues from, like I say, other sports, having a stadium for other sports, having just practice fields for other sports in times when whatever, you'll have some team that's on there, but at least there should be some affordable time for some other places to use it, from the band to whoever. So I think it's a great thing. I think if the community comes forward with it, I think it'll be an easy decision, but hopefully they hit the numbers that we need to do.
I would just encourage the board, if there's any questions that you would like answered before we come back together on the 27th, just let us know. Just send me an email, give me a call. We'll make sure that we have those pieces. Otherwise, mainly things are probably going to come to you on the 27th. I don't anticipate a new packet of information really coming forward before then. It'll simply be kind of the updated version of what you already have. With those pieces vetted out, and if there's any changes, they will articulate those.
I just want to make sure that we really address our track team and make
Yes.
sure that they have
Thank
a
you.
good a good opportunity for postseason.
I did really appreciate that they came not only with a problem, but with some proposed solutions.
With solutions,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And to let us know early enough in the process that we've got some chance to respond to it. That was great.
They need to have a good postseason.
Well, we do that with everything else. I mean, when
That's
football
right.
goes longer, it affects basketball. Basketball's
right.
going longer, it's
Yeah.
affecting other sports, and rightfully so. So it's
Yes.
right, we should try and accommodate without
We
a doubt.
have to
Yep.
look at
Like I said during that part of our
It's a good
our
problem.
meeting,
It is.
I think that'll be definitely a piece we will have on our agenda when we come together for our construction meeting. I think there's probably some flexibility that we'll have, and we had that dialogue with Rutler this afternoon, so we'll bring that forward, and then the results of that we'll bring back to you in April.
Any other comments? To be continued. Item D, referendum communication.
Yeah, one of the things that we shared with you probably last fall was that we wanted to do a follow-up mailing to the community for those who haven't seen the successes that we've had with the referendum from 2014. So the document you have in your packet is one that Steve and I worked with Kristen from Findorf, I think many of you have met her, and also Kit Daly from Epstein Union. And what we tried to do was just encapsulate really what occurred at each of the schools, some of the successes, and this would be then a mailing that we would send out to all of our households in the district. So before we did that, we wanted to bring it here to see if anybody had any feedback or thoughts that you'd like us to consider. We're looking for this to launch after spring break, probably in that first week in April. We've also, as I think I shared with you, we had done 3 different videos that were part of each of the different projects. I had a kickoff piece to those, and then the principals really gave a tour and talked about what was occurring in their buildings. Those, I think, turned out very nice for anybody who hasn't been able to get out to our schools. So that link is also associated here, and then we'll have those up on our website. So the whole concept of this was as really a closing out of the referendum, just to share with the community really the successes that we've had, share some of the updates, and provide them some feedback and ability to view some additional videos, etc., if they choose to.
This
So
is,
I'm assuming it's
It's a
a
trifold.
fold.
It's a trifold.
It's a trifold.
Yeah.
And then will it be enveloped?
No, it's a tri and a bifold. It's like it folds in half and then that's the mailer.
Oh,
Right,
and
so
then
here's the mailer
mailing.
right in the middle.
Oh, that's okay. got
So it will
yeah.
be on legal size paper, not 8.5 by 11, and then
Okay.
that's the mailer.
Then that's the mailing.
Yep.
Oh, I thought it was great.
I thought it was great too. Wow, I mean, wow. It's really neat, kind of makes you feel proud.
Any other feedback? Okay, what we'll do is we'll give our final edit check to it, and then you can expect that to hit mailboxes here first weeks in April.
Okay, other correspondence?
Other correspondence, I have a few tonight. One is we have our National Merit Scholarship Competition finalists. We have Sarah Warner, Dan Steinel, Braden Helwig, so congratulations to those students. And thank you, Brian, for always forwarding those off to us when those come. I've also included in correspondence tonight really just the survey results from our budget meeting that we had with staff. So that was really a piece that I just wanted to bring forward to you. It was our exit survey with our administration, the board, and the leadership team, and just their views and input on the budget meeting. I think overall, they were very, very positive. I think it was just good to kind of hear from staff kind of what some of their thoughts were and if they found that night valuable. So I shared with you all the results of the questions and any written comments that you saw. And my last part, and Brian and Aaron, I'll share this piece with you too. I got in the mail just the other day a thank you from Monroe School District. You know, I had reached out to them after they had lost a few of their students in an accident. This is my hometown, so it's kind of a close piece. Aaron was there when they arrived here, and the kids found out the news about those kids losing their classmates. So they sent a thank you. It's a handwritten thank you from one of their students. So It's very nice, so I'll hand it off to you guys, and I don't know if there was some reaching out from any of the student councils or not, but that's from the high school student council in Monroe.
I guess the other thing I'd like to mention is, I know we mentioned the merit scholars, merit finalists in here, but if you go to the high school website every once in a while, they tell you, I mean, there's always a list of all kinds of other recognitions and awards and congratulations and kudos. So thanks for doing that on the website, but there's so many areas that our students are achieving in wonderful ways. So I encourage individuals in the community to take a look at that too, so you can see what's going on with many of our students across all kinds of curricular areas. Thank you, Mark. Committee reports, on to budget committee. Starting with budget.
Yeah, we have a few action items. Randy, if you don't mind me asking, the budget committee did forward on the Building Bridges program. I don't know if the timing has changed due to the presentation not coming tonight, or if you and Kurt still wanted to move that
No,
forward.
I still would like to move that one forward, even
Okay.
without Executive Teresi being here.
Okay, all right.
I can talk to that when you get there.
Okay, so the action items that the committee brought forward tonight are listed on the agenda. The first one is approval of the audit bid. So I brought the specifications, a bidder's list, and a letter to the budget committee for review. We did spend some time discussing at the committee level the specifications, including on the letter, we are asking for the audit firms to provide an hourly fee for any additional services deemed necessary by the board or requests from administration during the audit process. So as board members, you will see that information come back to you when the results of the audit bidding process is presented. So what you have in front of you tonight is a request to move forward with the audit bid with the documents that you see attached, so that we can come back and provide the bid results to the budget committee and ultimately back to the full board for consideration at a future meeting. The budget committee did recommend on a 3-0 basis for approval of the audit bid at tonight's board meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions that any board members has on this topic.
So we're not approving the bid, we're approving the process to bid and what the letter is requesting.
Yes.
My only question is, then we had the audit firms, is that who you intend to send it to, or?
Mhm.
Okay, and there's two individuals from the same company, it's just because you're sending it to one, or there's two individuals?
The two individuals, one is the individual that we've worked with locally just to make sure she receives it, as well as the individual at their firm who's identified as the one who wants to receive these.
Oh, okay, so kind of making
Just
sure it
making
gets
sure,
done.
yes,
Okay.
yep.
Got it. Is there a motion to approve of the audit bid communication?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Moved and seconded, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. The next item is to request approval of the budget planning process for 2017-18. We had the budget committee look at the first draft. I received comments from the committee that were incorporated into the second draft, as well as feedback from administrators and staff at Forecast 5 as to how we could improve the document for the second draft. The budget committee did review that document, is recommending approval on a 3-0 basis. Basically, it's a document for planning. All action associated with the budget will of course come back to the board for consideration at various points in time. So at this point, all you are really doing is just laying out the planning process for the next several months. The budget committee did recommend action tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about that process or the document that's attached.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Moved and seconded, any questions for Steve or any members of the process?
We were talking just tonight about numbers, and we need to look at our whole plan, I think, a little bit at some time in the future here. But isn't there where we're going to look harder at what we're considering our future enrollment numbers and all that you said
Right,
earlier?
that'll be something that we've what we'll be doing in the fall. So once we get to our third Friday count, we'll be having Mark Roffers come back and really do that aspect of our long-range facility planning piece. We'll coordinate that and bring that back after, probably late next fall.
That'll be good, just to.
And again, we're stuck in that same trap of trying to draft a budget based on what we think the governor and the legislature is going to approve. So we're making a good guess, like we always do.
But we should know by
I'm going
then?
to attend the Day at the Capitol on Wednesday, and that's one of the issues I intend to bring up about how frustrating that is and how difficult that puts a burden on districts to really try to plan when you have no idea what the funding's actually going to be, so.
Yeah, Julie, thank you for bringing that up, because the document is based off the state budget proposal. So at this point in time, that's all we have to work off of. As the process moves forward in the state legislature, we will continue to provide updates and update the documents, but thank you for bringing that up, because it is just based on the proposal as issued by the governor, certainly subject to change.
And while Julie brought that up, I think one of the things that, as you're at the Capitol, if you can just see to the ability that they will share kind of where they see some of these initiatives heading, would be helpful.
I just thought that some of the staff comments from the budget planning meeting really, I mean, I hope that you kind of read into that, but there's considerable, I think, ownership and partnership that we can engage in some of our Forecast 5 documents. I mean, I think it really indicated that they were seeing that we could save some money in other places and reallocate.
Those comments were encouraging, and I am really glad we
Absolutely.
included so much staff in that workshop.
Are there any other comments? Hearing none, there's a motion on the table to approve the budget planning process. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Building Bridges Program.
In your packet, you see a summary of the Building Bridges program. This is one that we've talked about a few different times around the table. You also saw it as part of our discussion with our budget workshop. I think it really addresses one of our leading needs, which is trying to work with student behavioral and mental health. It's also a partnership with the county. So Executive Parisi was going to be here this evening. He'll be here in May. But I would still like to move this forward, because I know Kurt is receiving some communications as far as our commitment in or out. This is a partnership. It's a $120,000 program, $60,000 paid by the county, $60,000 paid by us. The one correction I have is what I told you, Dave. When we spoke, I mentioned it was one person. It's actually two people that we get for that amount. That is a contract that would be then held through Catholic Charities, where they have two mental health providers that would then be assigned to our district to work with our students and our families. It's targeting that pre-K through, I think, 8th grade. So it's really that target as we're getting early interventions. And we're excited to be stepping forward into that program to really address a very high need.
So are those full-time dedicated to our district?
Yep. So what we're asking for tonight, and it is part of the budget planning piece, is we're really moving this one as our highest priority. This one would be a piece then that would be reflected in a future rendition of the budget that Steve is talking about. But I think the opportunity to partner with the county is vital, and we need to take advantage of that to meet some of the needs that we're seeing. So our recommendation tonight is to ask the board to approve this so we can move forward.
Move approval to fund the Building Bridges program as specified.
It's moved. Second is Jack. Okay. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. This is an exciting program. Warrior Stadium Pledge Agreement.
So the last item for consideration for the Budget Committee is a document that we're calling Warrior Stadium Pledge Agreement. The facility committee started this conversation 2 meetings ago. The big picture is really that the pledge agreement basically means the school district is agreeing to accept the pledges over a period of time that have been committed towards the Warrior Stadium project, instead of all of the funding being provided upfront for day one. The donations for the Warrior Stadium are running through the Waunakee Area Education Foundation. So the checks that are being written and the funds are going to the foundation. The foundation is holding them until the time when the project would begin. But the pledge documents that individuals have signed are pledging to continue making those payments to the Waunakee Area Education Foundation. So this agreement would basically mean that future donations that are coming in to fulfill the pledges would ultimately be paid back to the school district beyond the time of when the turf project would be completed. As the budget committee took a look at this document, there was one recommendation for change. And Rebecca, if you want to just scroll a little bit down, the language in blue was based on the request from the budget committee to assess an interest charge to the agreement. So as you see in blue, the school district would charge an interest rate equal to the interest rate that we would have earned in our investment account. The budget committee also talked about adjusting that rate on an annual basis. So this was my attempt to capture the discussion at the budget committee. I'm certainly open to changing that language if the committee members feel like they would like to see something look different than this. But this was based on the budget committee recommendation to add that into the agreement. The agreement in its entirety has been written by an attorney who represents the district in all matters regarding borrowing and credit. So the foundation of the agreement was written by our attorney. The section in blue was added based on the budget committee request. This agreement could be held until the night that a decision is made on Warrior Stadium, but we did bring it forward as the budget committee reviewed it, was comfortable with the content with the exception of adding the language in blue regarding the interest rate. Any of the budget committee members are welcome to weigh in as to whether that accomplishes what you were looking for, or whether you would suggest any revisions, but this is the document as discussed with that committee.
So is this then an agreement that would be between the district and what, the foundation?
Foundation, probably.
Because, as opposed to individual donors?
Right.
Right. Just says the foundation will pay the district.
As
the
they-
money-
As the money comes
as the
in.
money
As
is
the money
needed.
comes in, they'll turn it around and pay it to the district.
Right. I would recommend that we just table this until the March 22nd meeting.
So we'll bring this back.
Second.
We can't. There's a motion and a second to table this until we discuss it on the 22nd. All in favor?
Okay. Okay, we'll bring this back on the 27th.
Okay, that's it for the budget committee. Curriculum committee? It looks like it was more informational as opposed to any action items.
Curriculum and facilities for both. There's no action items on either of those this evening.
Are there any questions on either of those meeting minutes? And I'll remind board members that also any materials that would have been provided to members as for those meetings are available on board books. So if there's ever any questions on anything that you see in meeting minutes, as background for recommendations from committees or just informational in general, we can be looking at them and asking the appropriate administrative representative on the committee to.
We love to talk.
Because you love to talk about your projects. Okay, goals and objectives.
You wanna-
Go ahead.
All right. The goals meeting met to discuss the planning for a spring linkage meeting. When we set our I guess, our outlook for the year. We had first did the one about AODA and mental health in the fall, with a targeted time this spring to do something on co-curriculars. So we put forward a proposed agenda, which the Goals Committee discussed, and which I've just tried to summarize here this evening with regards to what we're trying to accomplish. So first of all, we're looking at a Monday, May 1st from 6:30 to 8:30, a 2-hour time frame. The objective is to have conversations with our community around the co-curricular programs, kicking it off with Aaron really doing an overview of what our co-curricular programs are. If you think to our co-curricular report that comes before the board on an annual basis, it's really trying to hit some of those summary points, talk a little bit about what his philosophy is and how we're trying to work towards moving things and providing opportunities for kids. And then having 3 breakout groups that people can rotate through. One of those being focused on co-curricular revisions and feedback. Aaron is working on just some pieces that he thinks need to be clarified and changed within our code, and looking at that as an opportunity to talk about the code, any feedback that participants have. A second piece is something that we've often talked about around this table, is program evaluation, the coaching evaluation process, and Brian Grabarski, who's assistant principal at the high school and also a coach in our district, would lead that dialogue and that discussion. And the third one being representatives from our athletic council and other co-curricular students, really a round table with participants with our students. So the goal of the evening is to provide some information, but to then provide really more of a dialogue with the community around those 3 topics, with then the goal of having a wrap-up at the end where any final comments can be made, an evaluation process, and then utilizing that information to potentially formulate, well, giving some feedback as Aaron's working through the code, and then taking the information we learn and receive and see how that changes some of the things that we're thinking about and potentially launching us into some future topics for discussion in the community. So that's the gist of what we talked about with the Goals Committee. You can see some of the details written out in the document that was provided in Board Book. But we were looking at Monday, May 1st, 6:30 to 8:30, with that being our topic.
Is this invite only, or
That was one of the things we did not talk about at the committee, was really how to do the invite piece. My thought was that we would do a general invite for anybody to attend. I would probably, given that, also see, and I talked to Tim Shaw a little bit about how to do this, of some sort of an electronic RSVP so I could get a number. So then if there was something, because like when we had these there'd be then potential to break into smaller groups and be prepared for that if need be. But my
would you
thought
do it
was,
in high school or do it in Heritage?
I'd probably do this at the high school.
We talked about some of the nosebleed that occurred at the Village Center. It was nice to have at the Village Center the last one of these, but it was very difficult sometimes to hear the conversations because you were so close physically, even though there was a
No, I agree with the high school.
Yeah, I think we could do it at the high school. We can then create some spaces where we can have those discussions. So tonight what I'm looking for is just any feedback on the agenda. And then also when we get to setting meetings, I'd just like to set that aside and make sure we can take a look at our calendars.
The other thing on the invites is I did see your paragraph there about the Infinite Campus and coaches and advisors.
Yeah.
Is maybe something specifically to the booster clubs?
Yeah.
To encourage them to get their members to come to?
Yes.
Because that would definitely be interesting.
Yep.
And though, one thing we talked about at the committee level is that, co-curricular is actually bigger than just sports, but it's going to be, and so the overview and the kind of recognition of the role of co-curriculars is something that would be covered up front, but some of the dialogue it'll appear to be specific to athletic-based co-curriculars, but a lot of people don't even recognize the 3 different types of co-curricular activities that are out there, so.
when
And
we-
how the code applies to whom and all, and why and all that stuff.
So the initial, where Peggy's going with that is some of the conversation we initially had with the committee was to try to focus it really on more the athletic piece, or to include a more rounded approach. And the committee really felt that it was important to include a more rounded approach in what we were doing here, which is how we'll be, so the global overview will include that. And then obviously the co-curricular code, I think that is a piece to really articulate, because I don't think a lot of folks probably realize it does apply to others than just athletics. And then the other 2 pieces from the program evaluation aspect, and then discussing with students their experiences and their feedback, will include representatives from across co-curricular representation.
When you do the general invitation to the parents, are you thinking you would encourage students to attend this at all,
I wasn't looking to do that, Joan. I think I was looking at some of the student voice kind of being through that. It doesn't mean that they certainly can't attend, but I was trying to manage numbers. It's one of my things I've
I'm
been
just
trying to,
wondering.
because I don't know what our attendance is being, and that's where I was talking to Tim about. If I had some idea of an RSVP, and it can just be, I just need to know numbers are coming, then I can plan a little accordingly. Because I don't know will this be one that draws in a larger audience? Will it bring in 50 people? Will it bring in 150? I'm not certain.
One of the other concerns I raised at the committee level, historically, I guess when I think of these linkage meetings, the focus has been on community engagement, and to me, that always implies 2-way conversation. It's feeling like this one is skewing, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just we need to be clear in how we communicate the purpose of the evening and what the expectations are. It feels like this one is going to be designed to be more informational, for us giving information as opposed to soliciting input. Now, I have concerns about that.
I'm not sure I was getting that feeling. I mean, when they do the presentation on the on the code, especially a discussion of suggested changes, that is getting the input from the people there. They can give input on those changes.
So we would have to be intentional and organized about how we arrange that participation. Because my understanding was we were going to probably, yes, gather input from those who attended, but largely in the form of a survey at the end. And we weren't really.
No,
I didn't get that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Great.
Let me clarify that, because I think that one of the things I talked about was we could gather, you could get additional information. There's a couple ways that we're going to get a lot of information. This is a big topic. And that was part of what I was trying to wrestle with, was how do we kind of tackle the larger topic here. That as there's pieces that come out of it that we learn, one way would be to have a follow-up survey that could be off of things that we learn. But I'm looking at these breakouts not being just sit and get. So if they're 25 minutes each, there's going to be a part to provide and lay some context, but the remainder of it, I want to be a dialogue, a question, and we'll have some guiding questions to really start to talk about the code, talk about really programs, program process, some of those things. I'd like the conversation from Brian's perspective, Brian Grabarski's perspective is, how do you provide feedback? How do you get feedback? What is the process that you go through to look at things, and trying to then solicit pieces from people who are in attendance to give their opinion on kind of what their experiences are and things we need to be thinking about. And certainly the kids ones, I see that as an open forum. I think there'll be some questions that we'll use as guiding questions just to get it going. But I think that that'll be a great opportunity, like it was at our first linkage meeting, for probably being the most wide open discussion. And I think our challenge will then be is gathering the input that we receive and then figuring out what we do with it. And that was kind of what my point was. You could do a follow-up survey based on something, or you could do it, that could yield another meeting on something in the future.
So we are expecting attendees to actually come with questions and comments. Is that correct?
Yeah. And some of it is, I
Or
think.
engage in dialogue.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you hear something, you have questions on what you heard.
And I think part of it is, I think that there's, just as we kind of learned things when we talked about the co-curricular code around the table, I think there's gonna be things that people will learn as Aaron kind of outlines that, and then we can have some additional dialogue around it. Now, how far that's gonna go, I'll be honest, this one's, has me a little bit more, I don't know what my output's gonna be, so that's my unknown. But I think that they're the right topics to be talking about, and we can then see what we receive, and we can evaluate whether, how we follow up, or I guess learn from the process. I think it's the right topic, it's just a very large topic to tackle.
That is it.
John?
I like the topics. It's, the people who I think are going to be most passionate about these topics are athletes and, you know, students that participate in them. And their parents will have a perspective. I don't know, if we are not inviting students, I'm thinking we may be missing a huge piece of the puzzle that we might want to hear. Not only current students, but recent graduates.
Amen.
That's where I think we, you know, I don't know. You know, I could go to these and I have nothing to offer because I don't really know the code. I don't know the coaches. I mean, the kids, it's the kids who are going to be passionate about this and have the information that I think we want to hear. I just don't know how to get that.
Hey,
I don't know how to
Brian
invite them.
and Aaron, can I have you guys come up for a second, just to join us in our conversation? Yeah, so part of our dialogue has been just around participation and invitations. Joan's comment being trying to potentially steer it around more of a student voice.
Well, what, I don't know, what do you think? Are there parents who are really passionate on these topics? Or is it more of the students?
They're the ones who send us the emails.
We have many lengthy
True.
discussions
But it's usually
around the
after
table
a
about
But
problem.
it's
these
based
topics.
on what the kids experience.
True.
And then the parents reflect.
And I will say that is very accurate. There are times though that I would say that it's maybe not always what the kids are experiencing. The kids are not the ones sometimes that are concerned and are carrying those concerns forward, if that makes
That's
sense.
true, yeah.
There are often times that maybe parents' expectations are not dramatically different, but that are different from their own children. Their children tend to be fine. Or maybe put it this way, not as upset about the situation as their parents maybe. You know, it's always good to get student voice, I think, as well. But one of the ways that we try to do that, I think, as well, is, you know, even with Aaron having started now a pretty viable athletic council. I mean, I'll take things back to principals council. We've got student council, which is up to 60 students this year. And, you know, so it's just a matter, I guess, of how you would want to get that student voice or hear that student voice as well.
So I think it kind of brings up a point. I mean, if there was a desire to move it towards a strong student voice piece, is there a different venue that we should be doing it in than in the evening?
I don't know, maybe we should start with the parents. I don't know.
And
You
we
know,
can
I
start
just,
with-
when I see these topics, I think the kids are the ones that are gonna wanna have some input.
How many kids are on your athletic council, Aaron?
No?
I say no.
Don't let
I love that Brian gets that. I say, you're gonna get in, depending on how you do that, you're gonna get into a whole discussion of what the rules should be and what that is, and I think the rules are what they should be. I look at it and wonder if we shouldn't be expanding it, because our athletics get pounded with some code violations that some of our other co-curriculars don't get pounded with. Drinking, drugs, whatever.
So,
There's not retaliation against some, it's all co-curricular, but if you're in forensics, is the criteria the same as the other? If you're in debate or you're in band, is the criteria the same as the other? You go to a party and you hit you know, it gets very interesting with some of that, and athletics gets pounded with it, and the other doesn't have anything, there's no repercussions.
But isn't it the same?
We had some of this.
It's tiered.
Yeah, there's
Correct.
3 categories of participation. In category
I
A,
guess I
which
have a lot
includes
of
all the
that.
sports and the
But
musical.
my
they
point,
get hit with it.
sorry,
Yeah.
Dad, but my point with the student part is it'd be like me making rules for my kids, and you want to sit and argue that all day, that's fine, but they'll argue with you all day too, but the bottom line is it's a rule and it's what it is, and you know about it ahead of time and they all sign off and all that. I'm not saying there shouldn't be some discussion or input, and it sounds like you guys do some of that, but if you bring that into your big forum, that can totally go sideways and
But
it ends up being.
That's my point. It was not clear to me how we communicate what the goal of the evening is. So you're right, it's a great topic. I like the 3 rotations, but how do you keep it from just being a complaint session?
Yeah.
So we want it to be constructive. We do want input, but how do we engage in the dialogue in a way that's focused enough that we have an intent for what we want people to learn and what we want to learn from them, and how do we communicate that?
Well, I think it's pretty simple when, if you create a public forum and ask for input from the public, your agenda doesn't always control. That's why they're there. And there may be things we have no idea they're gonna bring up. But as far, I guess I'm not seeing this as a, let's complain about the rural session. I mean, based on the 3 sessions there's only one that does that talks about the rules. The other 2 sessions don't. And as far as doing student input, I don't see why we have to do it all at one event and why it's an either or. I don't see why you don't do a separate student one. Now, you have an athletic council.
And to go back on that, about a month ago, February, it was either February or January's meeting, the 32, we sat down and went over some of the proposed changes, and I asked for input, and we had a discussion during contact time. So there's been some sharing and some input and some back and forth with that group of
But that's only
students.
with the athletics.
Yeah.
That drop the other 2 tiers that we're talking about, that some of that could affect or whatever. And the other 2 sessions have nothing to do with the code.
Mhm.
And to me, a big reason when you're talking about bringing back alumni or, people who've been through the program or people who are in the program, it isn't just about the rules.
No.
It's about what do we think would help us have a better program.
Right, it's the
That's my
experience.
assumption.
That's
correct.
kind of what I'm seeing the student interaction one being, is getting hopefully more towards something like that, is what would be a better program, or the evaluation process, which is the other section. Those 2 actually interest me more than the rules. And the students could have a lot of good input on, maybe there's not enough coaches in one program, or maybe one program has too many coaches, or, maybe the hours when this is done causes a huge conflict. Like, it was sad to see the forensics team lose a whole bunch of members just because of a conflict with a dance thing. And they lost a whole bunch of people in their last tournament because of that. And guess what? We don't hear about that. You wouldn't hear about it from your council because it's all athletics, and yet, how does that get addressed? That's where bringing the students in would be a good idea. And if we're gonna listen to their parents, I don't see why we don't listen to the students. And I don't see why they have to be at the same event, and why doing one means you can't do the other.
How do we manage expectations for the evening? That's my big question.
You don't. It's called public input. You don't manage it any more than we manage a parent or a student coming here talking about the field.
I would hope we never call a meeting that we don't have some purpose for meeting though. So what's the purpose? What do we hope to gain by it?
I think the purpose really is to take, the basic purpose is to have a community dialogue around co-curriculars. The second part is to inform as some of the things about, I think when folks think of co-curriculars, they think of sports. I think that's where you naturally tend to go. I think part of that, what we can talk about is when we look at co-curriculars, participation, what the research says about participation in co-curriculars, it's the larger blanket. So we can articulate that piece. We can talk about some of our data we have on utilization, and how many of our kids participate. I think that's an important piece. Some of those data aspects. I think when you break out into those 3 breakouts, I think your purpose on the first one with the code is to share a bit and educate a bit on the code and to receive some feedback on it. So I think that one seems pretty straightforward to me. The program evaluation piece, coaches eval piece, I think that's one that we probably get involved with when there's a concern about a program. How do you kind of look at a program? What are some things that we value? What are we trying to accomplish? How do wins, losses, all of those things get articulated? And to be honest, how do we have, and if there's pieces that we need to learn from the community or from parents or from kids about what that looks like, that's probably the one that's got the most unknowns for me, but I think it's an important one for us to talk about. And the third one, I think, with the students, I think we have some basic prompts about what are your experiences, what are things that you like, what are things we need to improve. Those can be things that we could use as prompts. I'm going to guess by the time the people get in front of the kids, they're going to have questions. So when I looked at the ones with the AODA one we did a few months ago, that was almost completely driven. The kids made some statements, but then it was parents and community members' questions to the kids. And that's what I'm hoping that becomes. If it goes flat, we have some additional questions that we'll have to kind of move it forward. What we take away from it then, hopefully some input on the code. Hopefully we've informed as far as what's actually happening with our co-curriculars. And I think it would be great to hear what's happening with our students, what's the dialogue we're having there, what are things we have to think about. Maybe we know some of it, maybe something will come up that we don't. Same with the program eval piece. That's how we structure it. I do agree with Dave, once you open the door, that the conversation can go a lot of ways, but our structure to it will try to keep it within those boundaries. And the feedback then I think what we'll be processing through is, well, what did we hear? Did we learn something? Were there things that we didn't know about? Are there things we have to follow up on? I'm not sure how else to frame up the question, because I think the scope of it can be large, and the conversation can be either difficult or with emotion. I think that's where those things fall.
I know that it's like to be able to tell individuals what the role of co-curriculars are, period. I mean, why do we even have these programs in the first place? But, and I think there's also you're extending invitations to other students, not just the athletic council, leaders or influential students who are also involved in some of these other groups.
So the purpose, let's go back to our linkage meetings. The whole concept of those was part of our strategic plan to engage with community. So part of the question we have to ask is, who do you want to link in with? So I think part of what Joan's question yields is, do you want to have an additional voice with kids? If you do, I mean, it may be what Dave is saying. Maybe you take some of these pieces. Aaron's already done some of them, and we have a forum that we kind of direct towards some of our students, and we have more of a dialogue there. And we have some things that are more community-based with some of our students that are participating. That's really up to us what we do with it. So if there's things that, the purpose for this coming here tonight is to say, are we on the right track? Do you like it? Do you want to steer it a different direction? And I'm open to any and all of that. So, if we want to, this is taking place in May, so I think our invites probably need to go out multiple times, but probably starting in the beginning of April, start telling people that it's out there. So if that's something we want to give some thought to, there's opportunity. It could come back as part of our 27th meeting as well. But I'm open to your feedback as far as what your thoughts are.
I think the major thing I'm hearing is there the possibility of a student input and involvement. Honestly, I think if you're going to have students, you do it exactly right after school. You don't do it hours later expecting them to come back. That's going to be tougher for some of them, especially if their parents don't want to be directly involved.
Some of them are already engaged in extracurriculars right after school.
And you know what? Some of them may be willing to be more honest if their parents are.
Is it a point, Brian, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, you can break this out into multiple ones to break into smaller chunks. I'm thinking after school, I'm gonna lose some kids because they're involved in all these activities. Could we do, is there any opportunities for any of the kids during contact time or any of those type of things where you could have some of that? I know that's when you met with some of your students, is that right?
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just opening it up.
It's gotta be focused, I mean, because
Right.
we're looking
Yeah,
at 30
that's-
minutes.
yeah.
That's what we have, I mean, so, 30 minutes.
You couldn't do all three of them, but could you, if you brought, you could break it up into different ones? I'm just, we could start with,
But maybe, I mean, I don't want to change this whole thing. Maybe you already have had those discussions. I looked at the topics and, I mean, that's the first thing I thought of is where,
I don't disagree with you. I think the students would be hungry to give input.
yeah, but maybe you do that.
I think it depends upon the level of input that you want, and that, I don't mean, and
That's
here's,
right.
but here's what I'm saying by that too. You know, I never tried to diminish the amount of input that we get from students, but where these things tend to come up oftentimes is after we've had, a fairly major situation arise. Some, which is reactionary, we don't like to do that too often, but we do have those conversations. And conversely, I mean, we do, as Aaron just mentioned, I mean, we do have those conversations proactively with students too, especially if we start to hear, maybe some things trending that, because that's one thing in this day and age that one of two things tends to happen. I think students are willing to be more open. We'll get emails, we'll get conversations from students, or it goes fully the other way, but we usually don't get this from students, is that we will get communication from parents, community members, but it's almost under the cloak of anonymity. That doesn't help us a lot because we don't know how to follow up on that. And but if there's continues to be that thread coming in, then that may be one of those things. We're not going to go to students and say, we've gotten 4 anonymous letters about this program, but we might go to them and say, hey, what's the climate like right now, or what are you feeling? How's your experience going? Those types of things. So, I mean, this would be, from what I'm hearing, would be very formal. It's fine, we can do that. I think, again, a lot of our conversations right now tend to be informal, but formal within the framework of different student organizations that we have in place right now. And many of those, granted, you look at it, sure, Aaron's athletic council has athletes, but many of our athletes are also involved in the arts and that type of thing, as they should be. And, the principals council group I have is now 22 students. It used to be 16, it expands, and a lot of those students are multifaceted with their interests too. And like I said, student council went from 16 to 60. And so, I mean, it's ways that I think it's been important for, we don't want to discourage students being connected in that manner. And the other thing we gain from that, obviously, is we get that student voice much more than we ever used to, and that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
I'm thinking, I like the way it's set up right now, and if their concern or the question is, ways of letting others, I like the idea, I love the idea of alumni, to the extent that there's you'll get some notice in the paper, and word will get around. I mean, that's how these happen. I think, from what I'm hearing is to get a specific student voice might require something separate or different, aside from.
But in the invitation, I don't think we should discourage students.
No, you don't discourage, but it's not like, have,
Yeah,
I'm
and
thinking that,
see what comes out
people
of
show up.
it, and maybe it will lead us to another avenue or another program.
would you like the invitation to include that students are welcome?
Yeah, I would. But
I'm fine.
I'm just one.
I wasn't trying to keep them away, but I was just my big piece is just trying to manage.
The numbers, yeah.
But I
And I
think
just-
what somebody pointed out, kids are just so super busy. 3 hours after school, they're probably not going to come back.
Right.
But the ones that really feel
Yep.
like they have something to say, those are the ones we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Is that fair enough as far as where we're at?
I would be interested to hear feedback if you put it to your groups. Just
Okay.
as a,
Yeah.
as you talk to those groups, maybe that you propose that and say, what do you think of that? And I would be interested to hear that feedback.
We can take those prompts that we end up using, I mean, that night, and we'd be happy to do that.
We haven't flushed those out yet, but yeah, we
Yeah.
can run those through. Excellent. All right, what we'll do is continue moving this piece forward. Thank you for your input. Thanks, guys.
Let's see. Human Resources Committee.
How's that gonna-
There's no action items.
That's
We spent some time reviewing information that's going to be coming back again at a later meeting. And then there was a topic that we discussed with respect to job posting practices.
Yeah. If I can just have Connie talk about job postings, and then I want to talk about the school psychologist position real quickly.
So we've talked a little bit over the past few years about how the recruitment process is changing. The pool of candidates is smaller and smaller. There's more competition for the cream of the crop, which we're always looking to hire. So what I'm planning on doing this year is posting earlier. As soon as we know about a vacancy, we're posting it. We used to kind of wait and do them as a group when we knew what we had for openings for next year. Now we're just posting every single vacancy as soon as we know about it. But beyond that, when we anticipate vacancies, when there's positions that we're asking for board approval to create, or if we think somebody in a key position is leaving but they may not have submitted their resignation or retirement, we are going to post vacancies. They do not obligate us to anything. It doesn't create any liability for the district by posting a vacancy, but it gets it out there so people know that we're looking to fill a position. We won't move forward and take any action in terms of interviewing or putting the effort into finding the person until we know that we have the vacancy. But getting it out there, getting ahead of the curve is really important. Other districts are doing it, and I think that we're going to be at a disadvantage if we don't. It differs from the past in that I wouldn't put a vacancy out there if it was only anticipated. Or in a rare case when I did, I would note it as an anticipated vacancy. We don't plan on doing that anymore. We think we may be hiring a psychologist, and Randy talked about that. We'll put the posting out there. As far as, having candidates go through all the work of applying and then we don't actually fill it, I don't think it's a lot of work on the part of candidates because the system that we use to recruit is the weekend system. And people who are applying for positions fill out a profile, and they can submit that profile to many different districts. So candidates will have that created if they're looking for a job. It's not like they're doing all kinds of work to apply to a vacancy that we may not end up filling. So if you see something out there and weren't aware that we had that vacancy, it might not be officially approved yet. We might be in the process.
The one piece I wanted to talk to you about was in the budget requests, you saw a reallocation of some funds for a school psychologist. I think the position was in there with regards to also looking at a school social worker. The one that we're looking for, needing to really move faster on, is a school psych. I know Kurt and Janet attended a job fair here a few weeks ago where they saw some of the top candidates that were out there that would be interested to come here. What they both came to me with was that these folks are all getting job offers and interviewing in other places already. So what we have is that position has been posted. We have applicants. We feel we need to move ahead with our interviews as soon as possible and actually have that recommendation to you probably next month. Now the funding for this is completely through some reallocation pieces. Yeah, Kurt's reallocation plan also included some other positions which we're not recommending to move ahead with at this exact time. But the school psych one is one that we're nervous about, that if we don't get into the market, we're going to be struggling to find the top candidates. Anything to add to that, Kurt, from what's had to come up?
The only thing I would add is we, right now, since we have 10 individuals who've applied,
for the school psych position, we established a screening committee, and in reviewing those applications, 2 of the people aren't even properly licensed, so that takes 2 out of 10, so now we're down to 8. And some of the people were people that we did see at the job fair up in the Dells on February 17th, and they've actually contacted, some contacted Janet, 2 contacted Janet, 1 contacted me, and they asked us what is our time frame, because we have multiple offers by other districts. And I know that you have tables set across from each other at the job fair, and there was a district across from us, and I heard during one of the breaks that we didn't have somebody to talk to. They were talking to somebody, and they were actually doing their interviews the week after the job fair, so that would have been like the 3rd week of February. So they were already offering people positions. And they were a larger school district in the state, and they probably have multiple positions that they were trying to fill, so that then your pool shrinks even more. And our school psych positions are very important positions because they are in our administrative support group. So while they're not administrators, they do some tasks that are more administrative in nature. So they play a pretty key role for us. And there's not a lot of them out there. It's a shortage really across the Midwest for sure. Wisconsin, there are many districts who cannot fill their positions.
So the school psych position was really, we looked at, you approved the building bridges piece earlier tonight. This really ties into a grander vision of also how we service our students with behavioral and mental health needs, not only from the processes that they're normally involved with, IEPs, et cetera, but also that is one of the tiers of our professionals that we're using to work with our highest need kids. So it's part of our plan for that. I'm bringing it forward here tonight just to let you know we have had it posted. We actually have interviews scheduled because we need to get this thing moving if we're going to find somebody of quality. And it's really a heads up that this will probably be one that you'll see coming next month with an actual recommendation to it. The dollars associated with it would be through reallocation funds that Kurt has been able to do within his district. And I guess I just wanted to bring it here to see if there was any questions or concerns with that approach. We just feel we really need to get moving if we're going to find the right person.
So do you need a motion?
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't need a motion. It was more of just really
Information.
informational, just to say this is kind of the direction we're going. But it does impact the budget piece again, in that it's a reallocation aspect through some things that Kurt has done.
I'm glad we're updating our practice based on changing
marketplace.
circumstance.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Thanks, Kurt, for filling in the details.
That was one of the items in your, or that last meeting we had.
Yep.
I have no problem with that moving forward at all.
Yep.
Just a side comment, this is Act 10. All this stuff is to me a result of Act 10. We knew that was coming. You're going to see, and especially in good teachers or wherever, they've gotten more valuable, and it isn't just on longevity. So there's competition going on for these jobs. So that was going to be a result of
One
that.
question though, is that there was discussion of the QTI classified staff study, and there were some sort of preliminary findings and recommendations that were presented. It's not in board book. Is there a way to get copies of that?
Sure. Connie, the question was about the QTI study and any of the preliminary data that we reviewed. Dave was just wondering if we could take a look at that.
Yeah, I'll talk to QTI and see if we can get an electronic copy. They provided hard copies. It was really a draft. They're going back and they're adding some additional information and clarifying. So do you want to see what they
Yeah, I'd like to
have
see
now?
what was presented.
Yeah, the one thing that they cautioned, I mean, I think they weren't ready to come to the committee yet with the report, which is why they probably only gave it to you in hard copy, or gave it to us in hard copy.
They gave an initial report. I think we can share that with you,
Yeah.
Dave.
So
We'll get an electronic copy that we can share out, and just know that there are some things that we're that are just some clarification pieces that we are still working on.
And they hadn't done some other things yet.
Right, it's not
So it's, as long as all those footnotes that we talked about, so that there's not misinterpretation of,
No, I mean, it's no different than we got the bids on Warrior Stadium,
Exactly.
but they're gonna change by the 22nd.
any other questions on the HR meeting? Okay, on to the consent agenda.
If I can just make a comment before consent
Oh,
agenda.
okay.
One of the things that you'll see in the consent agenda is the Washington DC trip from 8th grade. This is, there was a timeline missed with this. There was, the organizers of the trip didn't realize they needed to bring this back in multiple iterations to the board as they've gone through the process. So the trip that they took was last summer. They're now in the iteration where so it's an 8th grade trip. So it ends up being an annual trip. So this is actually for the trip that is coming up for this summer. So they're already well down the road. They already have kids that are already ready to move forward with this. So I apologize that it's coming at this time. I caught knowledge of it here just within the last week or so, and then wanted to make sure that we brought it here to make sure that we followed that process. I've communicated to Marcy and to Jason at the middle school that any future renditions need to come back through the board, so you'll probably see the proposal for 2018 coming next month. So you saw in your materials at your seat are just some of the more specific itineraries that we didn't have to attach to board book. It's a very similar type trip that they took last summer, which was quite successful, and I believe Jason included a video that we included with your packet of information. So I just wanted to give that clarification before we entered into the consent agenda tonight.
So in the consent agenda is approval of checks on the finance reports, some youth option applications, a utility easement along County B, gifts and field trips. And in addition to that is the one we talked about, DECA International Conference, simply because they qualified last week, so that's why it wasn't in this packet right now, as well as the administrator, admin support teacher contract stuff from HR. You can have a motion to approve all or pull some out for separate discussion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Dave, seconded by Joan, to approve of all. Questions, comments on any of the items?
So that easement piece, people have gotten in the habit of parking there?
Mhm.
Is that going to be an issue? Will it be obvious you can no longer park there kind of thing?
I actually think they're curb and gutter.
Ah, perfect. I didn't like that people were parking there, but.
Right, it was never enforced, but yeah, you're correct. I believe that is gonna, actually, there's gonna be a different, it will be a different type of a area there, so that parking will be much more difficult.
And if it helps with that, all the better as well.
And this easement for the utility piece, Joe is working with Dave Drayson on specifics. They've got an agreement on how to make it best so it doesn't impact some of our other stuff.
Good.
Perfect.
Gary?
And these trips, we're not paying for these, right?
Nope.
No,
None of them? The DECA one either to whatever?
no.
Okay.
It's all fundraising. Put more benefit.
Well, we probably
to
pay
it.
the registration fees for them to participate at that level.
Probably do
Yeah.
some of the participation fees, but the travel and such is
And we
main.
probably pay for a sub for the
Sub for the
teacher to go
teacher
along.
if they're gone. Anything else, Brian? Sub for the teacher, there's some registrations.
The sub is really all it is, the registration actually is being paid out of their fundraising
Wow.
budgets too.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the items on the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Board business, legislative update. Julie's going to be going to the Day at the Capitol on Wednesday. And are there, I mean, I think Randy had mentioned a couple of, just things that, to make sure that, if you have an opportunity to find out what's the status of timing of decisions, I mean, that's one item. Are there any other, I know that we've discussed in the budget planning process, but if there's any other suggestions or thoughts that you'd like to share with Julie, she'd be speaking on
Yep.
behalf of herself, but if she was also seeking information from, board members or.
So it's okay to identify myself as a member of the Waunakee board.
You
but
have
I
a
will
tag,
say
you
I
said
am
that, yeah.
speaking for myself
Or,
as a perspective of one.
yeah. I don't know, do you have any idea, any thoughts? Kurt, also?
I think, Julie, you can speak in both, you've heard
Yes.
some of the
Okay.
things that we've
Okay.
talked about with
All
like
right.
resolutions, et cetera.
Yep.
I think you can bring some of those forward. I think our interests right now are, if you have any insights, obviously the $200 per student
Yeah.
is an important piece for us.
So thank
I
you.
think you're looking at things like the
School start?
The school start date is one that's
Yeah.
been pretty well uniformly discussed around here. Licensure is one that, just to see kind of where that's fallen. Trying to think off the top of my head, anything else, Steve, that's jumping out at you? The dollars is a big one.
Yeah.
Seeing what's the viability of that. I mean, obviously, part of those dollars is tied to some self-funding of the healthcare. So trying to see if that's something that's going to happen, or if we need to be adjusting in any way accordingly from that. Or any other tea leaves you can read from the
All
Capitol?
right.
How's that? You're wide
Soak
open.
up the vibe.
That's
Well, looking
right.
forward to see you getting dragged out of there.
That's right.
And there are also some dates that are starting to float around with the public hearings with respect to the budget, Joint Finance Committee, and so they're starting to share some of those dates as well. I don't see anything in the Madison area scheduled yet, so we'll let you be posted on those.
Thank you for going with that.
Thank you for going, Julie. Okay, future agendas and meetings. We do need to schedule a special board, or the special board meeting, right, May 1st for the linkage meeting?
Yeah, well, I think we just need a special, we'll call that a special board meeting as a linkage meeting, so we do need to schedule that one.
And are we scheduling our board reorg?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I got. Rebecca's notes.
Okay, so first of all, March 1st.
May 1st.
I'm sorry, May 1st is the,
May 1st at 6:30.
okay, is there a motion to schedule that?
So moved.
Second.
Dave, seconded by Joan. It starts at 6:30.
Yes.
Yep, on May 1st for linkage meeting on co-curriculars. All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, reorg.
Reorg date, so we're just taking a look at, I think the earliest we can do it, held within 30 days of the fourth Monday in April.
April
So the
24th.
24th would be our first date we could hold it, and we just and then we have within 30 days after that to hold the meeting.
Yep.
I say we go for April 24th. In case there's,
I would be able to be there, but
Oh.
that's only one.
I think it's important to have everybody present.
I do.
Is that a Monday?
It's a Monday. Is there a better day?
Mondays or Wednesdays? The rest I don't know. I didn't bring my calendar either, but.
I can do any Wednesday, but the only Monday I can do within those days is the 15th.
Wednesdays are
Wednesday.
non-sports days. so that's
Wednesday
a
the
good day.
26th?
Wednesday, the 26th?
Does that work for the board members?
Okay, so what time? 5:30, 6? I mean, earlier better, or if people have after-school commitments?
I think they gotta be done by 5:30 with practice, so whatever, something like, whatever that works, I can leave.
Okay, so 5:30 on April 26th, work for board reorg.
Yep.
Okay, is
Sorry,
there a
what
motion?
time did you say?
5:30.
5:30.
And is there a motion for that date?
So moved.
Second.
Dave and Julie, I'm watching Rebecca. All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Any other committees?
I think we've already have policy on the 27th. We already have a special board meeting to deal with our bids on the 27th. Connie, I think we were going to move our HR meeting, is that right?
April 4th is on the calendar, but we're going to cancel that meeting. And I think we'll wait and reschedule our next HR committee meeting at the next board meeting.
Okay.
Because I have to wait to get everything back from QTI before we have our next meeting.
Okay. So the April 4th is
Let's
not.
take it off.
Yeah, okay, got it. Okay.
Tim, you had a date, did you have any dates that you needed to schedule?
We need to schedule that special.
Oh, we need to thank you.
Oh.
We need a special meeting to do our second semester curriculum updates. We
Yes.
did,
So that's two groups from CT, so it's secondary English language arts, world language, family consumer education, and business education.
okay. Now, I think you were looking at some dates. What were some of the dates that you were talking
So
about?
I gave the chairs for those departments about 10 dates. And I said, if you have any bad dates, let me know by noon today. And I heard back from one chair with 2 bad dates. So I took those off the list. I'm assuming silence means all of the dates were good. It sounds like we just scheduled some things for the April 27th here. So that comes off.
26.
26.
Well, it depends on, that's a short meeting
April
probably.
The April,
April 26th.
26th was a meeting
April
scheduled.
26th.
okay.
You could,
Could you have
why
something
not
April
add them to the board
27th?
I mean, basically, that's a half hour, maybe, board reorg?
26th wasn't one of your dates though, right?
Right, here are the
Oh,
dates
okay,
that
I'm sorry.
I gave them, here are dates that I still have. April 25th, April 27th, May 1st, and I think I heard of May
No,
1st.
We just did
No, that's
Lincoln
Lincoln.
meeting.
Yeah. May 2nd, May 4th, May 10th, May 11th, and May 15th.
What about the 10th?
What is this meeting?
This is where we do our curriculum reports that used to always come here. We do one every semester, so we did one last semester. Or we did it in December. Is that right?
Yeah, it was
Or
art,
January.
science, math, and FIAD.
Right, and we did the last ones.
Yes.
So now this is the next iteration of those 4.
So instead of shortening our meetings, we're just having more meetings.
You're having ones that are focused on those topics, right?
It's all part of being salary.
That's right.
Wow. Nice. But at least I don't
You
have to
push
sign
for
it.
salary, you're getting it.
So let's take the 10th off the table.
This
I
is
just,
crazy.
Yeah.
He just got an email.
Take what off?
Let's take May 10th off the table. I just
Okay.
had a thought that might not work. So April 25th, April 27th, May 2nd, May 4th, May 11th, May 15th are dates that we'll take.
Can we change our board reorg to the 25th?
And then have this other
And then
thing
just have
afterwards.
this right after?
Well, what time would this need to be?
So when we did it last time,
Mhm.
we did it from 4 to 6.
Okay.
With 2 departments on in the first hour, and then 2 departments on in the second hour. I'm reluctant to keep teachers
Right.
through a lot later than that.
Yep.
And I don't know with a 4 o'clock start how that works for everybody around the table. So I don't want to assume because we did that before that we want to keep doing the 4 o'clock start. But that's when we did it back in January.
Just show.
So then we could have this meeting from, say, 4 to 6, and then after that have a board meeting for reorg? I mean, how does that sound? I mean, because as opposed to 2 separate nights?
They're talking Tuesday night.
Can we do the 27th?
But what is it, but I don't know
instead
about
of the
Gary though.
25th?
Gary, if you can't make it.
Can we do the 27th, the Thursday, April 27th?
No, Gary can't, his schedule gets
I didn't bring
crazy.
mine, but I'm gonna tell you, we play every Tuesday.
Okay,
Well, maybe Thursday, Friday, I don't know, but
okay. Well, then we'll keep the reorg where
you
it's.
can just schedule it and I'll check in. If I can get away, I'll get away. And the reorg, if you make it later on the 26th and did that earlier, that works, but that wasn't the date you had, so. Then you're going to the 25th.
Well, and so
Were any of those
I
dates
was-
Wednesday?
I intentionally tried to stay away from Wednesdays when I gave them nights.
Oh,
Okay.
I understand.
So maybe I should not have.
Well,
Why don't you go back and just take a look at some other dates? We're meeting here in 2 weeks on the 27th, and we can just.
oh
go
yeah,
back.
let's do that.
That way we can kind of flush that out.
Yeah,
so-
but you put it all on the 26th.
So-
Yeah,
So
because
the-
if we could do it all on the
If
26th.
we could do it all on April 26th,
Yep.
that would be great for all concerned.
Although I had penciled in here, we had a curriculum meeting at UCAM on the 26th.
So we'll feed you too.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
So, you know,
Three first.
Ernie Banks said, let's play two, but, you know, Julie, we're gonna play three.
All right, then.
Curriculum,
Highly efficient.
presentations, reorg, all in one.
All right.
Yes, why don't we do that, Tim? Let's see if we check out a few of those dates, and we'll be back here on the 27th, and we can get that one.
If you'd like me to look at bring the Wednesdays online.
Bring
Yeah.
the Wednesday
Okay.
deadline.
I'll run that by him and get that right back to you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, any other meetings?
I'm good. I think
The
we got
only
everything
other
else.
comment that I have to make is on the 16th, our meeting on Thursday, for evaluations and goals
Yes.
discussions. It's going to be in the back conference room.
Yes.
Because this is being used for something else. It's just a small group anyway, so, pardon?
6 o'clock.
Yes, and it's
Yes.
at 6 o'clock. So, and I didn't think we needed any special technology or anything, it's just discussions. Okay, great. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Dave and Jack, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
That's what I think. We should sit down and negotiate and get them
No, we approved the rebate.
Actually, we're only going by June.
But there are gonna be some overhead.
Ongoing
That's what mine-
expenses.
Political science.
Well, there's gotta be operating expenses, I thought that was part of it.
She'll have.
Yeah, there's the one.
Well, this, I'm sorry, this is the first time you're hearing the whole $15,000.